Epstein alive? The questions that never died. August 10th, 2019. A date that was supposed to close a chapter, a date that was supposed to end a story. Jeffrey Epstein was declared dead inside a federal prison cell under constant surveillance in the custody of the most powerful justice system on earth. And yet, for many people, the story didn't end, it began. Because almost immediately, things didn't make sense. The cameras failed, the guards fell asleep, the most monitored prisoner in America was suddenly alone, and within hours he was gone. Officials called it suicide, case closed, but questions remained, questions that refused to disappear, questions that still echo today. Part 1. The Man Who Should Never Have Existed. Jeffrey Epstein wasn't just wealthy, he wasn't just connected, he was something else, something far more dangerous. He was a man without limits, without oversight, without consequences. Presidents knew him, billionaires trusted him, royalty visited him, scientists accepted his funding, and yet no one could clearly explain where his money truly came from. He owned private jets, multiple mansions, an island, and access to the most powerful people on earth. An island so isolated, so controlled, it became known by another name, Little St. James, but to investigators and victims it had a darker identity. Epstein's Island. Part 2. The Arrest. In July 2019, Jeffrey Epstein was arrested again. This time, federal prosecutors promised something different. No deals, no protection, no escape. For the first time, Epstein faced charges that could expose everything: his network, his connections, his secrets, and possibly names that the world was never meant to see. He was placed inside the Metropolitan Correctional Center, New York, one of the most secure detention facilities in America, under suicide watch, under constant observation, watched, monitored, controlled, until suddenly he wasn't. Part 3. The Night Everything Failed. August 10th, 2019. Somewhere between night and morning, the system broke, not in one place, but everywhere. The cameras malfunctioned, the guards failed to check his cell, protocols weren't followed, records weren't properly maintained, mistake after mistake after mistake. And when morning arrived, Jeffrey Epstein was dead. Official cause: suicide by hanging. Case closed, at least officially. Part 4. The questions begin. But almost immediately, people began to notice something unusual. Too many failures, too many coincidences, too many unanswered questions. 2 guards, both asleep, cameras not working, check-ins skipped, paperwork incomplete. In one of the most secure prisons in America, the system didn't fail in one place. It failed everywhere, all at once. For some, this was incompetence. For others, it was something else, something deliberate. Part 5. The timing. Jeffrey Epstein was weeks away from trial, weeks away from testimony, weeks away from potentially naming names, powerful names, dangerous names, names connected to wealth, politics, and influence. And then, suddenly, he was gone. Part 6. The theories emerge. Almost immediately, theories began to spread. Some believed he took his own life. Others believed he was silenced. And some asked a different question, a more disturbing question. What if he never died at all? What if the most valuable prisoner in the world simply disappeared? Part 7. Why people doubt. In history, there have been cases where powerful individuals escaped justice through influence, through protection, through systems designed to protect them, not expose them. Epstein had wealth, connections, leverage, information that could destroy reputations, careers, governments. If he talked, everything could change. Part 8. The core question. The official story says Jeffrey Epstein died alone in a prison cell, but questions remain, questions that still haven't been fully answered. Questions about systems, about power, about protection. Because sometimes the truth doesn't disappear, it's hidden, protected, redacted, buried. The missing minutes. The night the system went blind. The Metropolitan Correctional Center was designed to prevent exactly this. It was a place where nothing was supposed to go unseen. Every hallway monitored, every movement recorded, every inmate accounted for, especially him. Jeffrey Epstein, the most watched prisoner in America. But on the night he died, the system didn't just fail, it disappeared. Officials later confirmed that cameras covering Epstein's housing unit malfunctioned, not before, not after, but during the exact window of time that mattered most. The moment between life and death was never recorded. The guards. 2 guards were assigned to watch him. Their job was simple: check on Epstein every 30 minutes, confirm he was alive, confirm he was safe, confirm he was still there. They didn't. For hours, no checks were performed, no entries recorded, no confirmation made. Instead, official logs were later found to be incomplete and then altered. The guards eventually admitted they had fallen asleep, both of them at the same time. In one of the most secure prisons in the country, the most important prisoner was left alone. The protocols. Epstein had previously been placed on suicide watch, a special status reserved for inmates considered high risk. Under suicide watch, protocols become stricter, surveillance increases, monitoring becomes constant, isolation is prevented, everything is controlled. But days before his death, Epstein was removed from suicide watch despite being one of the most high-profile detainees in modern history, despite his previous condition, despite the risks. The reason remains unclear. The cell. According to official reports, Epstein was found unresponsive inside his cell, alone, unwatched, unmonitored, unrecorded. His cellmate had been transferred out hours earlier, leaving Epstein by himself, without supervision, without protection, without witnesses. No cameras, no guards, no cellmate, no recording. The timeline. The timeline that night contains gaps, minutes that cannot be verified, moments that exist only in reports, not recordings. In investigations, missing time matters because truth lives in minutes, in seconds, in details. But those minutes were never seen. The aftermath. Within hours, the world knew Jeffrey Epstein was dead. The official explanation spread quickly. Suicide, case closed. But the failures were too many, too precise, too convenient. The cameras failed, the guards slept, the protocols broke, the system collapsed all at once. For some, it was incompetence. For others, it was something else. The pattern. Jeffrey Epstein wasn't just another inmate. He was a man who knew secrets, secrets involving wealth, power, influence, secrets that could expose people who had everything to lose. If he spoke, careers could end, empires could fall, reputations could collapse. And then he was gone. The question: no footage, no witnesses, no complete timeline, only reports, statements, conclusions. And redactions, black ink covering truth, black ink hiding answers, black ink protecting something or someone. Because sometimes death ends a story, and sometimes it protects one. Jeffrey Epstein was declared dead, but the questions never were. Never. The files, the silence, and the possibility. The documents that spoke without words. When Jeffrey Epstein died, the investigation didn't end. It expanded because his death didn't just close a case, it opened a vacuum, a space filled with files, statements, reports, and black ink. Documents were released, hundreds of pages, official, stamped, authorized, and incomplete. Names were missing, sections erased, entire paragraphs removed, not deleted, hidden. Redaction is not destruction, it is preservation of secrecy. The medical examiner. The official cause of death was ruled a suicide, determined by the medical examiner, accepted by the system, recorded as fact. But others questioned the conclusion. Independent observers noted unusual details, points of discussion, points of disagreement. In investigations involving power, certainty is often the first casualty. The island, far from the prison, another place remained, an island, private, isolated, silent. This island had seen visitors, powerful visitors, influential visitors, invisible visitors. After Epstein's death, the island remained untouched by answers, protected by silence. The network. Epstein didn't exist alone. He existed inside a network built on access, trust, influence, and information. Information is power, and power protects itself. The timing. His death came at a critical moment, before trial, before testimony, before full disclosure, before he could speak in a courtroom, under oath, on record. Some answers never entered the system because the person holding them never had the chance. The silence. Silence is not always absence. Sometimes it is protection. Silence protects reputations. Silence protects institutions. Silence protects stability. Silence protects power. The possibility. Officially, Jeffrey Epstein died in that cell. Officially, the case was closed. Officially, the system moved forward. But unanswered questions remain. Questions without recordings. Questions without witnesses. Questions without closure. Because truth doesn't disappear, it hides in documents, in gaps, in silence. Last part, the record room. History is not built from answers, it is built from records, and sometimes the most important records are incomplete. Jeffrey Epstein's story did not end with his death, it ended with a conclusion, and conclusions are not always the same as truth. Because when a man like Epstein dies, what disappears with him may matter more than the man himself.